Well, a very good morning to you all and a warm welcome to this edition of Views, People and News, VPN, this Saturday, the 22nd of March, 2025. My name is Judith Atim. I'm your host, and today we're talking about political lies and contestations. Is this the tragedy awaiting Uganda? And I'm pleased to be joined by a panel of honorables, starting with Honorable Beatrice Kiraso, who is a political and economic policy consultant right now. She's also a former EAC Deputy Secretary General. Good morning, Honorable. I know you want to catch your breath, but just say hello and catch your breath.
Hey, hello, good morning.
Good to have you. I am also pleased to be joined by Honorable George Odongo. He's a member of the East African Legislative Assembly. He was last in the studio 20 years ago.
Yes.
Good morning, George.
Good morning, and thank you very much for hosting me again today.
And it's not only going to be today. I'm going to ensure that I drag you to this show a lot more times than you can imagine. Thank you for making it. Our other guest, Honorable Proscovia Musumba, is just around the corner. She'll be joining us. She's actually here, not even around the corner. But I'll give her a minute to settle in. Honorable, she's being so cheeky and giggling a lot with her colleague. Good to have you people. Honorable Salam.
Yes, my dear.
Could you just sit down and say hello to your listeners?
And she had to be in blue.
You've seen the people you want to be with today.
Oh my
I'm sure.
God, great company. You should see the smiles from ear to ear. Good morning to all of you out there.
Good morning.
Good Saturday to you.
Good to have you. So before you ladies came
It's
in,
really good to see Mbide.
Mbide has made quite a good recovery after
Polly. There's thanks.
Yes. So, before you ladies came in, I was just telling George that you're on your way, and he said, I'm not going to do a lot of talking. I just want to sit and listen to them. These ladies have amazing sound bites. So, I think the feeling is mutual. Everyone is happy to see the other and to share. But on this show, normally, before we start, I take you through highlights, the key events that happened during the week, and then I'll give you each a moment to just pick one or two things that you want to comment on, and then we dive into the conversation. So on Saturday last week, actually on this show here, we broke the news about the tragedy that had struck Kalangala district. And a week later, the families in the 6 villages there are yet to come to terms and to cope with a devastating cyclone that hit their area, which left at least 3 people dead and more than 30 injured. The strong winds tore through villages and destroyed nearly 200 homes, a police barracks, acres of crops. It downed electric poles. It damaged business structures like restaurants, shops, salons, and bars. And the Office of the Prime Minister, of course, as well as the Uganda Red Cross Society and the leaders from the area have been over there on the ground helping to provide humanitarian assistance and respond to this crisis. And on Sunday, President Museveni announced that his government has commenced criminal and electoral investigations into the chaotic Kawempe North by-election, where NUP's Elias Luyimbazi Nalukola was announced the winner. The president states that the election was marred by irregularities such as ballot stuffing, altering of results, destruction of ballot boxes, campaigning at the polling stations, intimidation, violence, and so many irregularities, all of which warrant an audit. And the NRM party's top organ, the Central Executive Committee, sat on Friday, last Friday, and denounced the results, and they've ordered their legal team to challenge the results in court. President Museveni, on another note, has also resumed his wealth creation tours in Bunyoro this week. On Thursday, Parliament approved the Ministry of Finance's request to borrow more than $190 million. That's close to 700 billion shillings from Stanbic Bank, Uganda, for the Umeme Limited buyout, despite concerns raised by some legislators and a report by the Committee on National Economy. In the heated debate, the chairperson of the committee, John Bosto Ikojo, presented their recommendations in which they urged the government not to proceed with a loan until the Auditor General finalizes his report to establish the exact Umeme buyout amount. Although some MPs had concerns regarding debt sustainability, the voices that spoke out about the likely financial repercussions for failure to pay Umeme before the 31st of this month won the Speaker's attention. And the same sitting passed a motion seconding Uganda's deployment of UPDF troops in South Sudan to help stabilize the country currently under renewed civil unrest. The Speaker of Parliament, Anita Mong, did not allow further debate on this matter after the State Minister for Defense, Jacob Oboth, both cited security and diplomatic concerns. Further afield, our neighbors Rwanda severed diplomatic ties with Belgium on Monday, and they also expelled all Belgian diplomats from the country. A Rwandan Foreign Ministry statement said Belgium had consistently undermined Kigali during the ongoing conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In response, Brussels called the measure disproportionate and expelled Rwandan diplomats. And in the DRC, within the region still, Presidents Felix Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of Congo and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame have agreed to a ceasefire in the rebel-controlled eastern DRC. The agreement followed a meeting held on Tuesday between the two leaders and the Emir of the State of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Kagame and Tshisekedi also agreed to continue the talks initiated in Qatar to establish foundations for lasting peace. A lot of things, of course. And again, back at home on Wednesday, Buganda Road Chief Magistrates Court issued an international warrant of arrest for Isaac Semakade, the president of the Uganda Law Society, in which is expected to appear in court on charges of insulting the Director of Public Prosecutions. Chief Magistrate Ronald Kaizi issued the warrant after Semakade failed to appear, despite previous criminal summons and a warrant of arrest issued against him. Semakade, who is believed to be out of the country, has fired back, challenging all arrest warrants issued against him, saying they are unjustified and politically motivated. And lastly, Uganda Airlines has announced the commencement of a new scheduled route between Entebbe and London. Commencing on May 18th, 2025, the flights will operate 4 times a week in each direction, serving London's second largest airport, London to Gatwick from Entebbe Airport. Uganda last enjoyed direct non-stop flights to the UK before British Airways ceased operations here in November 2015. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Finally! Did you hear that, George? How does it feel to be the minority?
Welcome to the show, and just your quick thoughts randomly. It's just like I read, quite a loaded week, and those are just the highlights, so you can imagine. But just your quick thoughts randomly on any issue that I've talked about. George, we let the ladies. They say you're the minority.
Mm-hmm.
Who? Him or? Okay. I think
it was such a depressing situation. You're listening to bad news. I mean, the whole world is just bad news. I've actually stopped listening to news, largely because of BBC, my favorite. And the only thing that I hear from the BBC is war. And I was wondering to myself, is it not possible that we have another channel, or BBC, or any of the other channels, that talks about other things that is not war? Because the war has been imprinted in our minds now, and bad news from Uganda is the only thing that we read. What was good? Maybe we should ask. We have a full plate of bad news. A nation cannot survive on bad news. It gets into your psyche. And it has a way, it imprints itself on the psyche of young kids. You see us here today, we have been manufactured by the events of the 1980s. And subconsciously we walk with these emotional scars. And they impact everything we do, how we feel, how we react. And so the national conscience gets affected by such news. I'll start from Kawempe. I want to congratulate Nalukola Elias, because when all is said and done, he's such a beautiful soul. I keep marveling at him and saying, I wish I had his patience, his discipline. Even amidst all that, he never threw tantrums. He never punched back. Of course, I would have eaten somebody's nose. I would have beaten it off. I would have done something that you don't know. So, Nalukola is good. Nalukola as a person, as a candidate, as a legislator, will be good. It will be good for this country. Mm-hmm. Take it from me. Of course, all the others that presented themselves, there's only one person who makes it. You know that. So we must accept that certain things happen that way. But the aftermath, I say this because I was in shock when I heard that Mbide Stephen here, of all people, had been assaulted. And I thought to myself, if they had assaulted Salam, the world would say, okay, Salam's AK-47, the mouth, has landed her in some trouble. But in Mbide, when you look at Canary, these are people that are guarded. This is not their thing. The raw madness. And so we find ourselves as a country really sour. Wherever I go, people stop me and say, Salam, what's happening? You can read worry on everyone's face. And that's not the Uganda we had envisaged under Museveni. Mm-hmm. But as you can see, the regime is being revealed for what it truly is. We can now track that this is a terror machinery that will make terror on the entire populace of this country and in the region. Their biggest export and their biggest investment is terror. And you can track terror right from Luwero to Acholi, to Lango, to West Nile, to Teso, to Karamoja, to Kasese, back to Kampala. What goes round comes round again. And so we must brace ourselves for the terror machinery that is going to really characterize the civic life that we have left under President Museveni, and he brags about it. He brags about it, and I'm reminded, and I'm reminded happily. There was a time we visited the Capitol Hill as a parliamentary commission, and the late Cecilia Gwal said, "Listen, President Museveni is a man of terror. In fact, his thesis for his graduate studies in Dar es Salaam, the title was "The Role of Violence in and I thought, no, Cecilia must be lying. I said, no, because there's a public library, the Library of Congress has that too. So terror is on the mind and on the psyche. Violence is on the mind and the psyche of the president, and this is what we have to contend with. And it's not a yesterday thing. You can track it from his name, Tibuhabura. Okay? You can actually profile the psychological profile of the president. Just takes us to this where we are. And so I stopped worrying. You see, worrying is a waste of time. We need to acknowledge and understand that this is what we bargained for and this is what we had. This is the bed we laid. It's a terror bed, and therefore just get ready for it.
Thank you, Honorable. And I think we're still going to hear a lot of that thinking when we actually delve into our conversation. Honorable Kiraso, just your quick thoughts.
You have gone through some pieces of news that dominated our space last week. And I joined my sister actually to say most of it is not good news. I would like to say sorry and send my condolences to the Kalangala people following that accident. Everything else that you have read is 80% bad news or bad actions or actions that wouldn't be going through right now. So I want to relate this to the topic for today, which is lies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that lies inform most of those happenings, and I will not pick on any one in particular. Because even those that seem good, when you listen to some sections of the population, you'll hear them being challenged somehow. This is not true, this is not true. The biggest lie that we are living as a country is to move on as if everything is normal. And that goes to us, the population, leave alone the people that are leading us at all levels. Actually, my issue goes to the institutions, the high organs, which is the judiciary and the parliament. They have a big role to play in the governance of this country, but I'm not very sure that they themselves are not living a lie. The lie being that everybody's looking at their own survival by hook or crook. We are ignoring all this that is going on as if it's not, as if it's business as usual. We wake up the following day and walk with our heads high and with our, big cars. And where does that leave 80% of the population that are not me and you seated in this air-conditioned studio? Where does that leave the young people? Salam is talking about the way we were young at that time and where what happened shaped us, our thinking, our reactions, actually, not even reactions. What are we showing to these young people? The young people who are on social media all the time. It's a boat sinking here. It's a landslide there. It's because of omissions and commissions. So the big lie is really big. And I hope we'll go a little deeper to talk about the lie. The lies. Lies is little, but a lie, you can live a lie. You can be in your house, which is rented, but the lie in your head is that it's your house and you're going to improve it there and improve it there. And you even tell your children that it's your house and yet it's a rented house. So that big lie, I think, is in all of us to the extent that we sit here and talk something different and say things here, right? But if we retreated, 2 of us or 3 of us, for a cup of tea, our discussion will also be so different. It hurts me when I meet people that I have seen on television, that I have read about in the newspapers, giving certain statements. But when you meet them in person, in private, they say, "Nafe bitusobe de." So who is going
They even
to
speak in
salvage?
whispers.
Yes.
I say, even what you know is not what it is. It's wasara.
Exactly. So the lie, I don't know whether this is going to be a one-off or a series of discussions in the country to bring out the impasse. Because we have lived a lie, we are living a lie, we are promoting a lie, we are nurturing a lie.
We are a lie.
We are a lie.
Can you imagine?
So I'll not go into the specific incidents.
We'll delve into that much later.
Much later.
Okay.
Of course, Kawempe, for me, was an eyesore because I watched. One advantage of retirement is that I can sleep in switch on my TV when I'm still sleeping. I watch all these news in the morning. I watch the talk shows. I watched the nomination. I watched, and I don't know, I just switched off and went to do other things with a very heavy heart. So I started from that broad perspective that we need to step back a little, collectively, without pointing fingers, and determine where the rain started beating us.
Thank you, Honorable Kiraso. Honorable Judge Odongo, please.
Judith, the optics are bad, the audios are bad, the sound bites are bad. That's really what sums up the week. Let me just talk about the ceasefire between Rwanda and the DRC. I thought that, first of all, it's a good thing that has happened. But I think it's an indictment on the EAC. Because as EAC, we should build...
East African community.
Yeah, the East African community.
Yes.
I think we should build sufficient capacity.
I'm glad to have you both.
Yeah.
You know, they all come from East African community.
Yes.
So you know, if you... I keep telling people that one of the books that I enjoy reading is actually her memoirs of Kiraso, Beatrice Kiraso, Honorable Beatrice Kiraso here. It's a very, very brilliant book, and it talks about governance broadly in the region. And one of the areas that they talk about specifically is on the capacity of the region to deal with conflicts, both internally and also between partner states. And you can imagine, when did she leave the community? And up to today, we haven't built sufficient capacity to inspire the confidence of even the summit members to sit together and have a conversation. So you will have President Kagame and President Tshisekedi going to Qatar, of all places, you know, to strike a deal, a ceasefire deal. I mean, look at all the blueprints in all these meetings of summit. It's all one of the conditions was that let's have a ceasefire, but they couldn't listen to that. They had to go to Qatar, you know, because Qatar probably has geopolitical influence in the EAC much more than the EAC itself. So for me, that's really an indictment. It's a low moment, and it's a point of reflection for the region, because we need a strong East African community, to guarantee, as a key guarantor of peace and stability in all our partner states. So for me, that is one of the things that I thought was the highlight of this week. Of course, the other being the deployment of UPDF in South Sudan. Again, one of the member states of the East African community that has been grappling with governance issues, you know, and you know very well that one of the preconditions for membership to the EAC is that you must have the pillars of the state, and your governance systems should be good enough, should pass a certain threshold for you to qualify to be a member of the EAC. But for the last, I don't know how many years of the independence of the Republic of South Sudan, that country has struggled. Again, the leading agency in the peace process in South Sudan is IGAD. It's not EAC. And I have not seen a lot of leverage from the East African community on matters of governance within the Republic of South Sudan. So these are vestiges of the failure to build strong institutions of governance in South Sudan. And even if we deploy today, and say we have stabilized the South Sudan state, tomorrow we may be called upon again, essentially because we have not been able to deal with the sustainable issues of peace and security in that Republic of South Sudan.
Thank you very much. Stephen is telling me it's time for us to take a break, but when we return, I'd just like to hear your quick thoughts still about Umeme. Umeme's contract ends this month, and it's quite a buzz. Where are we going? How prepared are we to actually handle issues of electricity and so on? Just your quick thoughts after.
To Umeme, I hope you'll allow me to add one or two things.
Absolutely. That's after the break. Welcome back from the break. Glad you're still with us here on VPN on 933 KFM. It's 9:38 a.m. and we are discussing political lies and contestations, the tragedy awaiting Uganda. Once again, my guests are Honorable Beatrice Kiraso, political and economic policy consultant, former EAC Deputy Secretary General, Honorable George Odongo, member, East African Legislative Assembly, and Honorable Proscovia Musumba, founding member of the Forum for Democratic Change, as well as a former member of Parliament. Honorable Kiraso, I think the mic is for you, and then I'll hear your thoughts very quickly about the Umeme exit.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judith. I think you're also forgetting to add that I was a member of Parliament.
Yes.
Of the 6th and 7th. I like
How did it even skip? Yes.
And the 7th Parliament, where the issues of the power sector in this country started. I had asked to be allowed to comment just one or two things on what Honorable Odongo has just said regarding the East African community. I don't know why you should be surprised about the indictment, because I believe as an insider you must be following the relationships between the countries, the method that is used to bring new members to the community. The treaty is very clear on the qualities, on the qualifications of what that country should be or not be for it to be admitted into the community. I think we need to go back to the drawing board. When I was a Deputy Secretary General, I was in charge of the political affairs, and that's around the time when the discussion for admission of South Sudan started. In a closed meeting of the heads of state, I was invited. I usually got invited because of the political arena that I was holding. If I could step back, and I want to be on record because it is true, even for Rwanda and Burundi, I came to the community when the process was almost getting completed. But I said, wait a minute. Have you looked at this and this and this, especially on Burundi? The two countries, they are still at loggerheads. They are at war. And we're admitting them together. Are they going to import that impasse, or are we going to resolve it? If we are going to resolve it, we better put in our instruments a methodology that allows the community to intervene where countries have got a problem. Oh, that's not diplomatic. I didn't know that the community is just a romantic thing.
Encounter.
Where you have to massage each other's egos and, just move on and take pictures. I was actually, by the time I left, I was a bit frustrated because I had gone for real work. And thank you for acknowledging those memoirs, the protocols that I left on peace and security that I put in place are the ones that are still on the books. And I was invited at the last summit. I thought they were going to give us a progress report on how far they are with implementing those protocols. So they were giving us books, and I'm a speaker on a panel on peace and security, and they are giving me things which I did when I was there. So the big question is, do the countries of East Africa have even the moral authority to confidently convene any two warring parties? And those warring parties, do they look at the other countries without suspicion? Do they look at them with respect? Because for you to call me and salam if we have fought, if we are exchanging bad words, for you to say, no, girls, come and we talk, we need to respect you. I need to be convinced that you are impartial. The minute
you're good enough.
Exactly. The minute I suspect that you and Salam had a prior meeting last evening, and now you are calling me
to fit in,
to arbitrate, then I would lose confidence in you. So that is the plight of the East African community. On the Umeme thing, I think I'll leave it to Salam, because honestly, it has been on the books. This government has always known that the concession given to Umeme was going to expire, not to expire, because the termination date was determined. And we knew that on a certain X date, which is 31st next week, this will be the scenario. I don't know whether it is part of the lie. Because if it's not, then somebody has slept on the job. We are now panicking as if we did not know since 2 or 3 years ago that Umeme was going. The English say, if it's not broken, why fix it? So I'm yet to get convinced on the reasons why we had to have a reversal. For me, I don't mind reviewing policies, reevaluating them, and if they are not working, fixing them. Updating them. You review, and then you can even rescind something that you had decided if it's not working. I would love to see some key sectors being under the management of a state which is able to direct socio-economic development by running those entities. And I would like us, Ugandans, to ask ourselves,
why don't we take those jobs?
Whether
and fix
we are in position yet as a country, because there was a reason why we privatized. Has that reason changed? Is there evidence that now we are more able with this rampant corruption? I think I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Kiraso. Honorable Salam.
Listening to Beatrice here, who I've happily worked with, and whose capacity and potential I know, she's actually lived half her life intellectually, because she hasn't had the space to implement what she could. But Beatrice and George, let me tell you and our listeners, I think the bigger crisis we have is the crisis of men. Men. We don't have men in this country or on the continent.
But George is here.
No, these are boys. We don't have men. You know, men. When men walk in a place, you can tell. I'll give you a sample. We walk into the 6th Parliament as kids, and we find men: Manuel Pinto, Elika Ruhanga, Henry Chemba, Sir Richard Kejuka, Okule Park, Ben Wacha. I mean, the country just looks and says, yes, there are men on the table. There are none today. If you don't meet thugs, you meet boys. You meet allowance boys, or you meet fraudsters. There are no men. You met Mutevire, you have met a man. You've met Muhakanizi, you've met a man. Who do you meet today? On this continent, who do you meet? That's why there's a crisis. They're seated on the table. None of them is confident enough in their brain. They're still feathering themselves. Oh, who am I to be on this table? Oh, who am I? Who are you? George, you know what I always tell you when I meet you? We have no men worth the name that I'll sit on the table, you look me straight in the eye, I will communicate to you, and you'll appreciate.
So we learned from the best.
We learned from the best, and we're the. I mean, I feel good whenever I talk about these guys. They made us who we are. And their political DNA is still around. Sir Richard Kejuka walks on stage and Amanya Mshega walks on stage. You're just glad to be in there. You know?
Don't forget
in their
the women.
space. No, I'm talking about men today. Because the lack of
The
men
Joyce
is the
Mpangas.
biggest. Oh, you look at Joyce Mpanga. You just
The
settle down.
Mavenginas.
I tell you,
The
you
Betty
just
O'Quillies.
feel good. They never spoke
Cecilia
loud.
Ward.
Yes. Today, who do you find Adolf Mwesige? You find Dan Ogalo. You're in comfort. You're in comfort. You can tell and you can believe them. But today, whoever you look at is suspicion. Now, what did they want? What do they want? No.
It's a lie.
It's a lie. It's deception. We are living in denial. So we must fix the men on the table because it's an empty space. It's an empty space. They don't even know how to write minutes. They don't even know how to write speeches. They don't even know how to store records. This is the failure of systems. And you know they want to be ahead of everybody who knows, and they must make sure that they stop anybody who is good enough or who is better.
Because they hold the positions now.
So they hold the position and they hold the state and they hold our lives to what now has been described as retardation. A country retarded, do you know what it means? That is, fix it. Because I do recall, I attended a meeting where the AU had made an undertaking to silence the guns. Has even any man at AU level even tried to audit silencing the guns, what it means? Just basic silencing the gun. But you'll find them all choked up, all in suits.
Going to the
African Union meeting when they are not even worth those suits. Their brain is worthless. Their content, their strategic thinking is worthless. They came for an allowance. I mean, it is a big event to get on the plane. And they even brag with the toilet bags from business class, you know? I mean, when you get to that level of stupidity, I mean, I get incensed. These guys are not ready for leading this continent. I mean, by the time you're excited about a business class toilet bag and sandals, then who are you? You can be bought for a song. Now, we get into Umeme. Why Beatrice wants to leave it to me is because it's so painful. It's a painful episode we went through, we were changing a policy from state enterprises to private. And in between here, there was a big hole of lack of knowledge. It was a new thing, and it was World Bank driven, and there was no capacity. Even us who defined ourselves as young parliamentarians then, we could see that problem, but we didn't know how to define it or to speak it in English, you know? So we staggered. What is this? This thing is wrong, but what is it? We couldn't even define it, but we said, no, this is wrong. So the first thing we started with was Budagali. And the president has never forgiven us for that. And yet, we must claim, Beatrice, you and I and our team must claim our intellectual property rights for having known better than him. Because all the things that are being said today, we said them quarter a century ago.
Exactly.
We warned. You can go back to the Hansard, you can track, you can track and set the pattern. What happened? This thing started wrong. Started wrong at policy level. Umeme was a clumsy thing, and it was meant. It's not an accident. It's not an accident. It was meant to be like this, and the stampeding is so that money gets out of the system. It is being stampeded deliberately. This is not a mistake. Anybody who has worked for government, they'll tell you that the best way to steal money is when you stampede last minute. release the money last minute, so accountability will be overrun.
Because of crisis.
Because of crisis now, you see. That's why you see all the conferences they hold here in Munyonyo. They wait last minute because that's the chance to pounce. They're still bushmen pouncing at the money, pouncing at policies, overrunning things. It is a weapon of thugs and thuggery. It is written in the books. Don't allow time, because it doesn't mean well. Which country ever did this to itself and stayed viable and competitive? When they were setting up Umeme, they set it up as a company. They had broken Uganda Electricity Board into 7 entities. One entity created 7. And I said, this doesn't work. It's already a policy failure. They said, no, it works. And they said, no, it doesn't work. If it doesn't work on the book, it doesn't work in implementation.
Practice, yeah.
It doesn't. So they split it up into 7. They haven't even paid the Uganda Electricity Board workers.
Retrenched workers.
They didn't. They didn't.
Oh, really?
They haven't.
Okay.
And so now they bring Umeme. I'll tell you that we need to study. You guys who have time on your side, you need to study the relationship, the criminal relationship between Uganda and South Africa. The criminal relationship, the crime conduits and pathways, pastors' policy. Now, ESCOM was a UEB.
Yes.
It was the equivalent of UEB in South Africa. They closed our UEB here and went for UEB in South Africa. They made deals with them. While ESCOM was failing in South Africa, they said it was working in Uganda. I mean, how? So they bring a Mzungu who was overpaid. I forget his name. But this, they had interviews for the top job. And a Ugandan man called Yona Kanyumuzi had scored the highest. Yona Kanyumuzi scored the highest. He couldn't get the job because he was, they said he was UPC. They didn't even think he was Ugandan. His first label was that he was UPC. A very, very patriotic guy he was. We all voted him to go to the East African Legislative Assembly, leaving Eli Karuhanga. That is the trust he had. They refused to give him a job. They gave it to a boy who sat here and got spoiled for money. I mean, he had too much money. He went gambling, he went wild, all these things. And now they tell us 20 years down the road
that it was wrong.
That it was wrong.
It has to be reversed.
I mean, we didn't even build capacity, local capacity of managing that thing, the Umeme ESCOM thing. Because when you have intergenerational teams of professionals, like Yona Kanyomozi, by now we would have been identifying other people, training them, building their capacity. We have a pool of professionals that we can pick from. It didn't happen. So now they are pulling out money out of this concession. I think my understanding of a concession, Beatrice, maybe I've become Amsoga again. What is a concession? A concession, does it become a loan?
No.
I mean, a concession in English means that I've given you the right to run and operate.
To me, some rights.
Some rights to manage an entity.
Yes.
It is a going concern. It has never been declared bankrupt. And you say now you have to buy it out. Are we going to buy out MTN? Airtel? I mean, something is badly wrong. And I'll tell you, this is what they call syndicate crime.
Okay, thank you.
This is syndicate crime.
We'll come back to you again on that note. But Joe, just your quick thoughts. Honorable Salam here raises a lot of issues, but also you're the only one representing your gender in the studio. So from her submission, there's clearly a crisis we are having from your gender. Your generation of men is not doing justice when it comes to our governance, when it comes to our leadership. And I want you to take it like you listen to her, to your big sister. Because she really spoke like I speak to my younger brothers. She made me to have a reflection of that. Just
And
your
he's
quick
my
thoughts.
hope.
You see, the thing
He's
is,
your hope.
we
He's
are
my
not-
hope, and I've kept
Don't disappoint her, please.
Yeah, it's really not a crisis of men. The context. I always call it the tranquilizing effect of peace. Sometimes, peace gives you the comfort that almost everything is okay. And in the process, you actually fail to work on the necessities.
You sleep. Huh?
You sleep off and imagine that everything is okay. And in the process,
Imagine.
yeah, you are in the comfort zone, and for a long time, we have had that comfort.
As the men?
No,
As a country, as people, as citizens.
As people, yes. And in the process, we have allowed the smart guys to creep in.
The crafty ones.
Yes.
Oh, they are called.
That's why-
Yeah,
that's
he's
why I'm
putting it in quotes. Smart in quotes, yes.
Yeah, to creep in and have practically, for lack of a better word, when you talk about ESCOM and you talk about the South African experience, what comes into my mind is state capture, because that's what happened with the Gupta family in South Africa. In Uganda here, we have elite capture at two levels.
How I wish it was.
We have elite capture in the sense of political elite, and you also have elite capture in the sense of the technical elite. Now, it's very, very bad when there is a collusion between the technical and the political elite in a country. And that's probably the crisis that we are facing. And it's because, you see, we have failed to build vertical and horizontal constraints to power. I've said this on several occasions, that, as a country, we insist on democracy. Democracy has its dividends. Now, you can even have a very free and fair elections that gives you a democratically elected president. But a democratically elected president does not act alone. As long as we do not have institutions that are accountable, that provide the vertical and horizontal constraints to power that they are mandated with, chances are that those institutions will become extractive. So what we are seeing here is that everyone who is sitting in this institution sees Uganda as their project. They are not seeing Uganda as a responsibility, so there is no sense of public good. So now what you're seeing with Umeme and all these other things, to me, there is a deliberate crisis of planning. Because under normal circumstances, if you are a technocrat, you have the mandate to do policy analysis, to do planning. You must be having your dashboard that indicates to you that this contract is coming to an end. There is the performance levels of this particular policy is at this level, and therefore it's failed. Therefore, we need a review of this policy. You don't come in the tail end and cause a crisis, cause a stampede. So a stampede gives you the excuse brought to Parliament when a decision has got to be made, because if you fail to make a decision on this, it's going to be very expensive for the country. You see, so you are
So
in
they
a,
say.
so you cause a crisis. For me, it's a crisis that is caused because then there are people sitting there and watching and waiting for that decision to be made so that they align their individual pockets. You see, so we need basically as a country to look at the whole trajectory of where we are coming from and why we have not been able to build resilient institutions that are capable to deliver on the public good, to protect the interest of the ordinary citizen, beyond just an election.
Can I ask something, Judith?
Please.
George, when we say we need as a country to do ABCD, who are we talking about? I know I don't disagree with you. I'm just scratching my mind. Who is that person? Who is that group of people? Which is that segment of the population? Which is that institution that will help us to spearhead the process of going back on the drawing board, to refocus? I'm just thinking, I don't know what you...
First of all, we need to invest in courage. I think the country is having a crisis of courage. You know, there are too many crises in this country. One of which is a crisis of courage. The courage to speak truth to power. You know, the courage to actually confront the challenge that we are facing as a country, whether it's a political crisis, whether it's economic crisis. So we live a lie.
Deception.
And imagine that we are in a good position. No, we are not. We need to have those internal conversations. The institutions that used to have these internal conversations are no longer provoking that kind of debate. Parliament is one of them. You know, civil society is one of them. You know, we have even killed citizen agency, you know, where ordinary citizens begin to ask the necessary questions. There are unintended consequences of the decisions that we make. Initially, when we did the decentralization, the idea was that we are devolving power to the ordinary citizens so that they make the decisions about their governance. Little did we know that we are devolving corruption because we killed the citizen agency. So there is nobody who is holding these people to account. So what I'm talking about here is the courage for each one of us to speak out within the spaces that we have and say, we can do this thing and reclaim that space and make government work again.
Thank you very much. It's time for us to take a break. 4 minutes past 10 o'clock. We'll be back shortly and continue. Welcome back from the break. It's 8 minutes past 10 o'clock. We are still continuing with our discussion on political lies and contestations, the tragedy awaiting Uganda. George, you were still submitting.
You say it badly, the tragedy that is waiting to face us.
Well, how should we say it?
It's very, very frightening, my sister.
The what?
The tragedy that awaits us is so frightening, you know. And it's the truth.
That's why we need to unpack, we need to debunk what the lies we're dealing with.
To give a lie, you don't want to say the truth?
No, it's so frightening. I mean,
George, would you still want to, had you finished what you were saying? Or, because I think we cut you a little short. We were going into the break. I don't know if you had finished. You were talking about, of course, the crisis of courage that we are dealing with as a country, the courage to speak truth to power. But I think during the break, I said, you know, even the few courageous voices that we see coming up are silenced, are met with brutality, and that certainly sends another shockwave to those who would even want to come up and join these few voices, that this is not a safe space, that you don't have. So how do we confront this?
You see, the thing is, I want to go back to what I earlier on said about state capture. And, you know, state capture has no distinction. All of us become captives, essentially because state capture has a way in which it influences legislation. And, you know, once a law has been put in place, to implement such a law, you have a policy, so you know that that policy is equally influenced by a few individuals, and then that policy will create institutions. Those institutions will service the interest of those individuals, and institutions are managed by people, and the people who will be identified to run those institutions are aligned to the individual interests. So you can see that a small group of people can collapse a state. That's why they say fear state capture. It happened in South Africa, where all this, including ESCOM and so on, was cited. You know, so there is a small group of people who are pulling the strings, like the godfathers.
It's a cabal.
So the earlier we in our different institutions, whether you're a member of parliament, whether you're a policeman, whether you're a civil servant, you wake up to the fact that, you know, this thing called state capture includes you, and therefore you are part of the, collateral damage when it happens, is the day you wake up and begin to do the right thing. So we have to have a conversation around the national ethos, what our values, what they were talking about here today, and say, can we reclaim that space? And say, don't leave it and think that this is a failure of the president. This is a failure of about who and so on and so. It's also a failure of your citizenship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you need to reclaim that space and talk about it. Some of the things that I'm talking about here, some of my friends are not courageous enough to talk about them. But you know that this is how you fix a government. You have got to talk about the things and try and see how things can be fixed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Kiraso. Just your quick thoughts. You were actually asking him earlier, which I think he actually responded already when you were talking about what we need as a country to build, maybe institutions and so on. But still on the issue of state capture, I know he's given his views of how we can untangle or detangle ourselves from this kind of mess. But what else would you like to add on to what he just said? As a citizen out there listening, going about with my business, riding my border, frying my chips at the roadside, how do I exercise that citizen agency? How do I reclaim that space and exert myself and say, hey, I'm a citizen and my voice equally matters? How do I do that?
Yeah, Judith, I've actually been taking notes when George was speaking, because the question I asked was very genuine. It was out of desperation, because I would like to be part of doing something about this. Not only coming here to talk, I would like to be part, for example, of a think tank, which I'm already part of, where we can give information to the public, where we can call groups of people and start a discussion on nationalism, start a discussion on you said we are captives as a citizenry, and then we need to redeem ourselves, but we also need to redeem the state, because the state is captured, but within the captors, there are also captors within the captors. Actually,
rings.
Yes, there are rings. And I think today, if somebody asked a very simple question but a big one, who is in charge? Who is the mastermind of all these things that we have been describing? Who is in charge of that craft, the statecraft? Who is it? There must be some team, there must be some people who are designing all this, but who are they?
Deep state.
Who are those people? Because even when you have a deep state, privately you can sit and say, we think Beatrice is part of the deep state. We think Judith is also there. How about George? No, George, they don't trust him for reason ABCD. But here, I keep scratching my head. As part of thinkers, really, not because I want to do anything to government. I don't have the capacity. But who are those people? And why am I asking this? It would be good even for them to be engaged, so that the danger that Salam is talking about is exposed to them. And that danger will not only come to the general public. When danger comes, it's danger. Danger comes for everybody. Even whoever is at the center of doing this, because I don't think President Museveni sits on a daily to plan what will happen with Umeme and ESCOM and UEGCL and whatever. I don't think so. I don't think he sits on his own to say, you Jat, go and dress like that, and you go and do this. I don't think so. And you go and beat what's his name?
Stephen Bide, journalist and a local.
And you now go and arrest Semakade. I don't think so. There must be some core operators of what you have described. And besides the population, even those people, those individuals, have got to be engaged somehow. Actually, talking about these think tanks and what, I want to say that I was part of now defunct Uganda National Dialogue Coordinating Team, where a group of us under the Interreligious Council, the Elders Forum, political parties, the National Consultative Forum, women under WONET, we were on a team that was going to lead the Uganda National Dialogue. But it was killed in 2018. And I'll not go into the death and burial and Olumbe.
It's rooting on top.
But where we are now today, we need to have a credible system, a credible program where we start engaging, where we have a dialogue. It doesn't have to be the big one we had designed, where all the issues are put in one basket. It could be sectoral. Discuss issues to do with energy, including the oil that is being... Start a discussion including the quality of our social services. How are they? We talk about... Let me give you a small example how Ugandans will have now become used to getting hoodwinked. When we're announcing results of even primary school, we talk about the 800 students, I don't know if they are the ones, but I'm just giving it as an example, who sat for exams and say these ones graduated in grade 1, these 2, these 3, right? We do not talk about when they started primary 1, how many were enrolled. Then we lose focus of those that have fallen off along the way. And the whole discussion now goes to the results, which school has done better, which one cheated exams. You see how little we put our minds into things. So there is sometimes, I don't know if it is deliberate or if it's luck, that something like beating journalists or causing havoc in Kawempe takes a whole week for us to debate, while in Parliament there are loans that are being approved. For what? Have they been properly scrutinized like we used to do?
Yeah.
We'd even say, no, government, go back and renegotiate. We did that.
They were bad.
So, yes, we were bad. And we thought we were doing good for the country. Little did we know that cliquism, the bad one, had already started. Little did we know that we were stepping on people's toes. We thought we were the good girls who were copying now the people that my sister was talking about, the good ones, and looking at them and saying, yeah, when I grow up, I want to be like you. So we thought we were paving a way for good leadership. But it was meant with the brunt that it did and cost some of us
long term.
Yeah. So, but before I conclude on that, I would like Ugandans to know that when we talk of a lie will include both concealment of information, the right information. You conceal the truth and feed people on something that is half-patched, shabby.
Half-truths.
Outrightly and deliberately falsify information. And say in the studio there were 3 women, panelists, and the host. And you look people in the eye and say, yes, there were 3 women. There were 3 women.
Style.
There were 3 women. But there was this George. No, it was Georgina. It was Georgina.
For your information, I'm called Georgina in the ESC Parliament because I am a member of the Women's Caucus.
It must be the great work.
Yeah, so for me on this, really, I think we need to start conversations on nationalism.
But before you go off, Stephen actually just wrote for me some questions that were coming through from someone. We have had political engagements before, inter-party iPod, similar to the national dialogue that you've been talking about.
They were not similar.
But at least attempts to have some kind of sobriety.
It was a lie.
And that is the question. But are we living a political lie? That was another question that comes at the end of it.
The answer is yes. That's the simple answer.
How do we get the truth back there?
You see,
what we're trying
when tragedy is facing you, when tragedy is facing you the way it is, you look at all the lost opportunities of engagement, and you can even track who's responsible for this failure. We can, because it's on camera, and it is within our lifetime. So we can tell you who has played which percentage of work into this national defeat, this national denial. Many of them were not up to the job. They were just procrastinating, People are in the wrong spaces. They're not ready for them. Somebody is just a title without content. People are in the wrong places. And you see, they're trying to do things they don't know. Like you see our young people today, they want to imagine a future, which future cannot just happen by itself. It must be prepared. And they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the tools with which to anchor it. And so they create a narrative. You people who failed in your time, you should even learn from that failure so that you don't fail again. But my solution would be is that the discussion must be regional. And I'm meaning the regions that formed Uganda, the 15 that are at the gate of Parliament. What Uganda is. Not these new patches that people are creating, Luengo district. No, there was no Luengo when we were negotiating Uganda. There was Buganda. There was Busoga territory. There was Ankole. Those are the shareholders of Uganda. It wasn't Makerere University. Makerere University can only be a catalyst, a source of information, but the 15 units, the 15 of us. Now you find so many Indians also want to be Uganda. My dear, you were not here. We don't know you. You can only come and negotiate with us. And so we need to go back to who we are. I only know 15 units. There was no army. In any case, we can all form our own armies so that we come with equal terror to anchor our interests. But you cannot impose a so-called national army on the 15 of us, where there's only one, and not even one. No. So we must go back to the 15 of us. We have mineral wealth in the territory of Busoga. Allow us to discuss it. Don't superimpose many commodities from Australia to Busoga. You are taking... you see, I'm talking about self. Who are we? I want the people of Acholi to come with their territory and say, listen, Amur, Apa, this is ours. We can only negotiate with you at the center. What is it? But you go and invade a community, parcel out this land, called land titles, you parcel it out, bring it to Kampala, and there are new occupants. I mean, this is madness. And then you see MPs from northern Uganda, also lost and not found, walking like cows, to enter a slaughterhouse of their community. I mean, I get mad. Because don't you see the threats facing us? Don't you see extinction? Don't you see that we are looking at ash? All these big buildings could turn to ash. Can't you, in our self-interest, self-preservation, can't we find it in us who speak so much English? We are past analysis. This is finding ourselves, the 15 regions. I don't want to speak to Uganda, for Uganda. I want you, Beatrice, to go back to Toro. I want you, George, go back. And don't become this with your heirs to Kampala. Fix Lango before you come to Kampala. You come and superimpose. You come and superimpose yourselves on us. No, please. We must go back to who we are, because now this state capture, this is the cluster of people whose stakes are only military. You know, what is their grounding? Their founding grounding, independence credentials. What are they? And you throw out the people who negotiated self-government. This is why we are in this mess. Because nobody owns here. A thing called government comes here and says they've given somebody Mabira forest. It's not your father's forest, my friend. Go and give out your father's forest. But not the forest found on Uganda land, on Busoga land, on Lango land, in Amur. You know? You go and superimpose yourself on Bulisa, take the oil, without the Banyoro ever understanding what is going on in our territory. So, fixing Uganda starts with independence, fixing who we are. You can find a word for it in Rusoga, in Langi, in Rutoro. I don't know what it is, but go back to where you come from. We will have Dinkas here running our country. And they are here in many. We are going to find Somalis who are packed in where? I'm not in Somalia. Please. And nobody is going to stop me from saying what I'm saying the way I'm saying it, because we cannot allow a Berlin conference to be held about us while we are looking. We must tell the young people who have time on their hands that, listen, fix this madness. We must come from the territories that made us. Of course, they will try to influence who comes, but they'll find us there. They'll find us there and they will know what we are made of. We will have an identity, we will know who we are, and we will know who the enemy is. But now you go to Busoga, for instance, if you wanted to have dialogue.
Who do you talk
Do you see any head or any tail? You are going to cluster yourself along. You bring MPs who stole votes to be where they are. I mean, the whole thing is a mess because we have made it a mess. And to unpack this mess, we need to unpack ourselves and see what is the collective good and talk truth to ourselves first before we talk truth to the rest of the country.
So the cost of these lies that we're talking about, if nothing is done to actually address or salvage the situation we find ourselves in, just how bad is it going to be for us as a country?
You see Boko Haram, you see ISIS. What are they called, those ones? You speak better English, George.
Al-Shabaab.
No, that's
extremist groups.
No, they are not extremists. They're
the terror?
Those military outfits.
The militant.
I'll find the word. But you see, when you radicalize a community, we will definitely grind to a halt. This is where we are going. Al-Shabaab, which means the youth, was a popular
brotherhood. Al-Shabaab means brotherhood.
Yes. I mean, how did they come to be? Because natural progression had been retarded. Systems had been corrupted to the point that there was... How did Hamas come to be? When the normal fails, then that vacuum is filled by other things. So, we as a country are getting there. And it is the people who have the guns who will take the day. So you'd better get a gun quickly.
Yeah, but
that's inciting.
No, you get a gun.
No, I'm not inciting. I must defend myself.
You get a gun to shoot who?
I'm not going to shoot nobody.
And where are you going to get
myself.
it from?
They are bored.
No, honorable. They
are bored.
There won't be a fight.
What is no?
Let me hear
Are you going to sit there and wait for another man to come shoot you?
There won't be a front line. You won't even know who's going to shoot you.
You see, that is why.
That is for me. That is the scare.
You see, that is true. But defend yourself at least.
By shooting.
No, closer to the microphone.
No. You don't have to shoot. The other guy in the other corner, George's corner, must know that I'm equally armed. So they will not just walk to me.
Okay, so are you just saying shooting in figurative terms?
Yes, I am.
Okay, figuratively speaking. We're not talking about actual shooting here. Yeah.
You're looking at the biggest coward.
Yeah. So George, before you come in, I'm looking at increasingly the hate.
Palpable.
The hate that we have cultivated in this country. And this government, when it came, one of the things it talked against was sectarianism. Today, can we pride ourselves as a country and say we're not sectarian? Because I've had many people saying, you Westerners, anything happens, you're gone, you're dead. You Westerners. And when it comes to the Westerners, which includes me, and Nabanja in Bunyoro and others, we say, wait a minute, for us we are Midwest. Now we have created Midwest and Southwest.
So now who is the Westerner in this case?
We can't be a part of the mess. When we were saying Acholis and Northerners, what did we mean? Say it. When we were saying Langis, Ningo, what were we saying? When we were saying Ngonia, what were we saying? It's part of our history.
Okay, let Honorable Kiraso finish.
Southwest, and people are now pointing fingers. Remember now, for us Midwest, we have now gone to the people who are saying it's you. So now in the Southwest, people are saying, no, wait a minute. Don't bundle us together. Me, I'm from Rukunjiri. I'm from Kabale. It is the others.
It is Ankole. And Ankole is saying,
they're like, no, we are not the ones.
Not us.
So what does that tell us? Because it seems all of you know it. It's not something I'm making up myself.
No.
We all know it. What does that tell us? It tells us that anything can happen, and those lines are already drawn
in our hearts.
The minute people feel disenfranchised for a long time, politically and economically, one day they'll rise up. I don't know when that day will be, because you are saying, with this lie, with this looming tragedy, what do you think the future is? The future is this thing has got to stop, either peacefully, which seems to be evading us, and we are missing all the opportunities and the chances for that peaceful not resolution, end to this. I hope we don't lose any more time. Me, I'm someone who is optimistic. I'm an optimistic person. I want to believe, Salam, I want to believe that somebody will wake up one day and say, no, enough is enough, let's go back on the drawing board. You are a realist. Yeah, me too, but with a lot of hope.
Thank you, Honorable Kiraso. George, how are you going to salvage Lango?
You know, there is what we call strategic depth.
Depth.
Yes.
Not depth.
I like George. He always has a way of teaching me, and by throwing this random big grammar, big concepts. Yes, strategic depth.
I told you that's my hope.
But he doesn't
There's really what we call strategic depth. Strategic depth, if I have to use, I don't know how I could do it, but strategic depth is the distance between your strategic assets from the front lines of the struggle.
Say that again.
Yes.
Is the distance between the front lines of the struggle and your strategic resources, institutions and so on, like people or schools or hospitals and so on and so forth. So my question is, as a country, do we have strategic depth? Our front lines are things like corruption. Our front lines are things like ethnic
differences, tribalism, nepotism.
Now we are hearing amplification of our ethnicities. Okay, and you remember that ethnic hatred is the software that drives destruction. It has happened. History is here for all of us to learn from. Rwanda is still flaming, and we can avoid it. So are we as a country building that strategic depth, the defenses of our gains as a country? So this is a call. It's a national call where each one of us has got to really, we need that national impulse to awaken that subconsciousness in us that says we are Ubuntu, we are just Ugandans, and we must be able to defend what is in the best interest of Ugandans, irrespective of color, irrespective of tribe, irrespective of ethnicity. Now, those defenses begin with the individual, escalate into the institutions. When you see us, blind, what do they call it? Blind walking into an abyss of borrowing, too much borrowing, which in future, what we are doing? We are reproducing captivity because we are captive to loans. Last week, did I read that every Ugandan is indebted to the tune of 2.3 million?
Yeah, about that.
So when the borrowing continues, I remember the president wrote one time, even wrote to the Ministry of Finance saying, I do not want any more borrowing because we are...
It's unsustainable now.
It's unsustainable. And then
Stephen is asking, is this another lie?
And then the technocrats from the Ministry of Finance, whenever they come to seek for more monies, do you know what they tell us? In Parliament, they say, we are still below our threshold. In fact, we are doing very well in the region. So we are living another lie that actually we are not in a debt crisis. But we are actually in a serious debt crisis. And what are we doing? We are using institutions like Parliament. We are stampeding Parliament to approve these loans. It's equivalent to pickpocketing ourselves using our own fingers. It's a very, very dangerous situation.
George, you
get it. So,
you don't want the truth. We're talking about lies and how we should confront them.
So I'm telling you this because we need these conscious conversations to reawaken the citizen in us. And I'm saying this because I'm a member of the National Resistance Movement. I'm a member of NRM.
Me too.
So I want to have very in-depth conversations about policy positions that we take, about legislative positions that we take, so that we look at them against our strategic priorities, against the promises that we have in our manifesto, and see whether we are actually providing the right leadership at the level of Parliament. Are we providing the right leadership at the level of government institutions? These conversations has got to be robust. They've got to be honest. They've got to be conscious conversations. This is the only way that we can safeguard our country from, the consequences of the so-called lies that you're talking about. Because once the population, I can tell you this, once the population begins to feel that there is nothing, they have a trust deficit. Governments work on trust. Trust is that glue that keeps government in power. The moment our people begin to lose trust that there is nothing good in government, it doesn't matter which government, whether it's NRM, whether it's the loss in confidence in government is a very bad thing for a country. you are going to end up with a Somalia situation where nobody trusts what government. Today you have this one, tomorrow you have another one. You have state collapse completely, and you don't want to go into that situation. So we have got to provoke this national conversation and escalate it to where it matters most, and each one of us must take that responsibility.
Thank you. I think it's about time for us to take a break, but I'll be reading our phone lines. After the break, you'll give us a call. You can reach us on 0393 933 933, 0393 262 933, 0393 262 934, 0393 266 933, 0701 933 934, and lastly 0751 933 900. That's after. Welcome back from the break, and it's just 15 minutes to 11. We shall be breaking off at 10:57. But if you're listening in, to give us a call, be a part of the conversation. I read out our phone lines already. I could read that to you again, 0393 933 933. I think we have a caller already on the line. Yes.
Hello, good morning, Madam Judith.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Fine. You're speaking to Dr. Aaron.
Yes, Dr. Aaron.
I'm calling from Chira.
Yes, please.
Thank you for the program.
Thank you very much for listening in and calling.
And I want to appreciate our visitors in the studio.
Thank you.
Now I have something to add on about what they are saying. I got a point here saying because of these loan issues, the citizens, they may end up losing trust in the government. I would love to say this open. You people, you have not known what is on ground. What people are saying on grassroots. If you were like me, who associate with many people on ground, you would know what Ugandans are thinking about.
Just let us know.
The government. Because when it comes to election, you, a citizen, you participate in rallies, you participate in anything to do in campaign, you are beaten, okay? By the army, by police. We don't know where we are. That is the first thing. When it comes to parliament, they approve loans. These loans, they cannot pay it back. As if we have nothing to pay back these loans. Okay? Now, when you come again in the sides of security, the army and the police, you add on the civilians. These three categories here, they don't have any relationship to have unity, to have peaceful change in this current government. Okay? Now, this has created a big gap and big enmity between civilians and the police plus army to have a peaceful change. That's why you see all these violence, whatever they are happening. And all these things happening, like too much loan, what they are happening because we don't have unity among ourselves.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you. We'll have another caller.
Morning.
Good morning.
This is Dr. Ekwaro.
Yes, Dr. Ekwaro. Ebuku?
No, Ekwaro George.
No. George. Yes.
Yes, I'm from Apache.
Yes, please, doctor.
The reason why Africa has never developed are leaders who overstay in power, because they run out of ideas and they begin doing all sorts of things basically to protect themselves in power. Now, I want to use one analogy. You cannot keep using the same driver who is getting accidents, killing passengers, and every day you buy a new bus, you still put the same driver and you expect him to change. Ordinarily speaking, the people who are responsible for the crisis we are having in the country now cannot be the same people who will resolve it. That one can't happen. What Ugandans need is a new sensation. Ugandans need to sit down. Ugandans need to talk to themselves, and we see where we started getting beaten by rain from. And we correct those mistakes as we go along until we get where we want to go. Otherwise, we are going to go off, we are going to do all sorts of things. You see, what we are having in Uganda is not a democracy. It's a military dictatorship which has captured the state on Uganda, and they're using it as they please. So unless we dismantle and subordinate the gun rule to civilian rule, we are wasting time. Look at what is happening. As we are discussing in the studio there, one person is in Luzira, you know?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kwaro. Yes. Hello.
Atim, our program.
Juma, your line is not very clear.
Hey, I'm not clear.
Too much feedback.
Sorry. Well, let me try.
Okay, you try. Okay, in the meantime, let's just have your quick thoughts and responses to the calls that have come through. But earlier, Stephen actually sent me something also saying political parties, we're also having other lies manifesting within our political parties. They're not listening to each other internally. Does this make sense? When you look at our parliament, just like one of the callers said, we have many times we see emotions running high and overriding logic. And this also has an implication when policies are being passed or voting is being done on certain crucial issues. 2025-26, we have an electoral journey ahead, but is our election system or electoral process another big lie that we have to deal with? In the 2000s, we left the movement, the one-party system, and embraced multipartism. But it seems we are still living another big political lie that parties can unite us or even lead us into better governance. Your quick thoughts, ladies and gentlemen.
Parties had no chance to survive under the threat of NRM. They had no chance whatsoever. And every effort to assault the building, the nurturing, the growth of alternative policies, would you call it infanticide, were killed deliberately killed. The assault on parties and having a healthy political environment. Because, you see, people who created multi-party meant to cure something. If you want to deal with organized opposition,
we actually have just 6 minutes
let it be organized.
6 minutes
like in a party form. You could also have unorganized opposition that flows into the streets, headless. So the value of having organized opposition is that you can hear them, you can engage them. You can do business with them. You will not agree on everything, but you can agree on the state and how you survive and how you develop a competitive and viable nation. Today, that opportunity doesn't exist. And so, please don't blame parties. Who has killed the parties? It's a long discussion.
Thank you. Honorable Kiraso.
No, I'll just say that I don't know whether we went to multipartism when we were not ready as a country, because besides changing the constitution to say we are now moving to multipartism, there are many other things that we should have done, including putting enabling laws, but most importantly, practices. The mindset did not change. So multipartism now created enmity instead of working together and accepting each other, where if you have opposing views, then we are enemies. For me, I think that was a very big problem. And then the political parties themselves needed to be more ideology-based. Ideology-based, so that they sell their ideology. But the environment needs to be improved.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
For as long as our political parties have turned out to be special purpose vehicles for elections, then we are living another lie of multi-partism. So basically, let's just call them campaign outfits, but not political organizations. So that, we activate our structures, we activate our political organizations when we see that an election is, coming.
But George, you know that they are not allowed to engage before elections.
So what I'm saying here is that political parties should actually be vehicles, for internal discussions or alternative policy positions, and so that competition is based on how each political organization articulates its agenda to the wananchi, and they understand it because these political organizations have been on the ground. But for as long as they're inactive and can only be activated when it is time for elections, I can assure you that what the Honorable Salam here said, they have suffered infanticide, that they died before they even started. So that's one of the areas that we need really as a country. We need to try and fix our political organizations, and it all comes down to a culture of tolerance, a culture of appreciation that you can have differences in opinion, yet continue to be citizens of the country.
Thank you. And I'm told we just have about 2 minutes to go, so very quickly, just your parting shots as we wind up the discussion. Again, I'll start with you, Honorable Salam.
How nice it would be for this country to find peace with itself, finally. We have the brains, we have the tools, we have the knowledge, we have the people. I would want to tell us ourselves that there's a missing strata in our political graph, and that strata is the strata of elders, the likes of in every region, not at national level. And I do recall the time when there were things like Ebiganiro, elders talking back to the community and getting feedback. We should have the equivalent of Ebiganiro in all these 15 regions. People, statesmen and stateswomen, facing themselves and facing their population and say, and calibrating it out for them. This is the threat we face. We must fix it, not theorize about it. And so I look forward to that day, because that space has died in Makerere. Can you imagine a dead university, intellectually dead, and there are guys in suits, men again walking in suits, as if they have anything to offer the country, just occupying space. So we need you, so-called lecturers, as many professors, so many because of it are doctors. Let's see what you have. You have nothing. You're just walking with degrees on top of your heads with nothing given back to us. And so I would also like to invite the young people that they must learn. And they must learn from even the worst so that they don't repeat the mistakes.
Thank you.
I'd love to be part of that.
Thank you very much. Honorable Kiraso, very quickly.
I'll just pick the issue of peace from what Honorable Musumba has just said. Because I think without peace in this country, the other things will fall flat on our face. We need to respect each other. We need to be accommodative of each other. Politics or no politics, we need to know that Uganda belongs to all of us. Although the population is increasing, we can still live together in harmony if certain things are put in place.
Thank you, Honorable Odongo.
Well, I need us to recalibrate our thinking around politics so that we win ourselves of the idea that politics is a do or die, and be able to create an environment where we can all be able to sit together and have a decent conversation. I am really nostalgic about the movement days when you could have the Semo Guerreres, you could have the Cecilia Oguals and so on and so forth, in spite of the differences.
They did so
differences.
By defiance.
You would have the likes of Amanya Mushega, the likes of Eria Kategaya. You have a good breed of people having a conversation about the country, not about political parties. So that even when we retire to our political organizations, we carry the same values.
Yeah, you can even give George a call and say, George, are you okay?
Exactly.
Namwendwa is fine.
Yeah, so I really, as somebody within the NRM, I want to see this kind of conversations taking place in our country. They will heal us.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all of you. Honorable George Odongo, member of the East African Legislative Assembly. Honorable Proscovia Musumba, founding member FDC, former member of Parliament. Honorable Beatrice Kiraso, political and economic policy consultant, former EAC Deputy Secretary General. Council, Member of Parliament in the 6th and 7th Parliament. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us here on the VPN today. And to you who've been listening in, and those of you who managed to call us and share make your contributions to the discussion, we do appreciate you very much. We've been talking about the political lies and contestations, the tragedy awaiting Uganda. My name is Judith Atim. VPN returns next Saturday. Until then, have yourselves a lovely week.